The pounding on the glass door didn't sound like knuckles. It sounded like metal, something meant to break things, and it came at 11 o'clock at night, when the only light in the house was the lamp beside my recliner. I'd been half asleep with a mystery novel on my chest, the kind my late wife Diane used to tease me about, because I always forgot the ending. She'd been gone 4 years. Her reading glasses still sat on the side table. I never could move them. Then my daughter's voice cut through the door, sharp and wrong. "Dad, open up! We need to talk right now." My daughter didn't show up at 11 at night. She called first, even to drop off leftover casserole. She definitely didn't bring her husband pounding on my porch railing with what sounded like a crowbar. I'd changed the locks 2 weeks earlier, after I found out what I found out, so I already knew why she was standing outside my door. I just didn't know how far she and Grant were willing to go to get what they wanted. Behind me, a voice I trusted more than almost anyone left alive said quietly, "Stay behind me, Walt. I've got the door." I turned the deadbolt. When it swung open, my daughter's face went the color of old paper. "My name is Walter Higbee. I'm 69 years old. Before I tell you what happened on that porch, you need to know how I got there, because none of it makes sense without the rest. I grew up outside Toledo, the son of a machinist. We didn't have much. My father used to say the only thing a man really owns is his word and his work. Everything else is just borrowed until somebody bigger takes it from you. I didn't understand that sentence until I was almost 70. I started in construction at 19. By 35, I had my own company, Higbee Restoration, historic homes, the careful kind of work most crews didn't have the patience for. I married Diane at 24. We had 2 children, our daughter Renee and our son Colton, who we lost in a car accident when he was 19. I won't dwell on that. Some wounds you carry, you don't put on display. Just know that after Colton, Renee became the only child we had left, and we poured everything into her. Maybe too much. Diane died of a stroke 4 years ago. Fast, no warning. After that, something in our family that had always been a little unsteady started to properly wobble. Renee was 38 now, married 6 years to a man named Grant Pruitt. He sold commercial insurance, wore a different watch every time I saw him, and always had an opinion about how I ran my business, though he'd never swung a hammer in his life. I never disliked him outright. I just never trusted the way he looked at things that weren't his. For a while after Diane died, things seemed fine. Sunday dinners, Renee calling to check on me. I thought grief had brought us closer. I was wrong about a lot of things that year, and that was the first one. The company was worth something. 31 years of contracts, 4 crews, a warehouse of architectural salvage, clients across the wealthiest families in the county. I also owned my house outright, a rental downtown, and investments Diane and I had built slowly, the boring way, over 3 decades. About 10 months ago, Renee started asking questions. At first they sounded like a daughter's concern. Was I sleeping? Had I seen a doctor? Wasn't I doing too much at the warehouse at my age? I answered honestly, because I had no reason not to. Then Grant started showing up at those same dinners asking about my will, about trusts, about whether I'd considered signing the company over to someone younger who could really grow it, by which he clearly meant himself, despite never managing so much as a lemonade stand. The truth revealed itself on a Tuesday afternoon in April. I'd stopped by the office for blueprints and heard voices through a half-open conference room door. Renee's, Grant's. "He forgot the Hendricks appointment last week," Renee was saying. "Twice. And Marlene said he called her by her sister's name at the grocery store." "That's exactly the kind of thing we document," Grant said, in that smooth, rehearsed tone he used when selling something. "We get a geriatric psych evaluation, line up 2 doctors who'll say what needs saying, and petition for conservatorship. Once that's granted, anything he signs afterward is void. He legally can't fight it." "And then," Renee asked, "you're the one managing his estate, his business, everything. He gets to live comfortably. Nobody's putting him anywhere bad, but the decisions become ours." I stood in that hallway with the blueprints under my arm and felt something in my chest go cold and still, the way water gets right before it freezes. My own daughter, planning to have me declared incompetent so she and her husband could take my company, my house, my savings, while I was standing in front of her, breathing, thinking clearly, running 4 job sites without a single client complaint in 31 years. I didn't say a word. I walked out, drove home, and sat in my truck in the driveway for 40 minutes before I could make myself go inside. That night I called Bernard Okafor, Diane's cousin, though we'd always just called him family. He'd built his own trucking business from nothing. We'd traded advice over barbecues for 30 years. "Walt," he said, "you need a real lawyer, not the one who did your will in 2003. Somebody who eats conservatorship cases for breakfast." I found her within a week. Priscilla Vance, sharp and no nonsense, 15 years defending elderly clients against exactly this kind of scheme. When I laid it all out, she didn't look surprised. She looked like she'd heard this story too many times. "You have 2 paths," she said. "Confront them now, which gets messy fast, or quietly build your defenses first and let them walk into a wall they don't see coming. How long do I need? 90 days would be comfortable. You may only have 30. So I got to work. First, my accountant of 22 years, Rosemary Kessler, ran a full audit of the books, because if they were willing to go this far, I wanted to know if money had already started disappearing. Second, I restructured my estate into an irrevocable trust neither of them could touch or even see. Third, I rewrote my will, adding a clause. Any attempt to have me declared incompetent meant automatic, permanent forfeiture of inheritance. Fourth, I changed every lock in the house, because I understood, with a clarity that scared me, that when they discovered what I'd done, they wouldn't take it quietly. Rosemary's audit came back 9 days later. It took longer than expected because what she found was worse than concerning. 18 months earlier, Renee had convinced me to give Grant limited access to certain vendor accounts, to modernize our invoicing. In that time, he'd routed just over $210,000 through 2 vendors that didn't exist, shell companies traced to an LLC, registered under his brother's name in Delaware, renovation supplies never delivered, consulting fees for consulting that never happened. $210,000. Money that should have gone to crew wages, materials, the retirement fund I'd promised 4 of my longest employees. "This isn't just conservatorship fraud anymore," Priscilla said when I told her. "This is embezzlement, clean and documented. We can move on this hard." I still hesitated, because hesitating is what fathers do, even betrayed ones. I didn't want Grant in handcuffs. I didn't want my 7-year-old grandson Miles growing up visiting his father through glass. But I also wasn't going to hand my life's work to 2 people willing to declare me senile over dinner conversation. I invited them over 2 weeks later, told them I wanted to discuss the company's future. Renee wore the tight smile she'd worn as a teenager hiding something. Grant wore his newest watch. After dessert, I set a manila folder on the table. Grant opened it first. I watched the blood leave his face the way you watch weather change on the horizon. Bank statements, vendor names, wire records, Rosemary's careful notes in the margins. "What is this?" $210,000, I said, and a recording of a conversation about conservatorship fraud that I heard with my own 2 ears in my own office. Renee went white. "Dad, Not yet. Let me finish." Grant shot up so fast his chair nearly tipped. "You're recording us now? Spying on your own family?" "I stopped being spied on the day I heard you planned to have me declared incompetent so you could steal what I spent 40 years building." "Nobody's stealing anything," he said. "We were exploring care options." $210,000 isn't a care option, Grant. It's a felony." The room went dead quiet except for Renee's ragged breathing. "Dad, please, we can fix this." "It already is like this," I said. "I want you both to leave, and I don't want to see you again until you're ready to face what you actually did." Grant slammed the door hard enough to rattle the window. I sat alone at that table a long time, looking at the empty chairs where my family used to sit. The days after were tense and strange. Grant called twice. I let it ring to voicemail. Renee texted things like, "You're overreacting." I didn't answer. What I did do was call Bernard and ask him to stay with me a few days. He arrived the next morning with a duffel bag and didn't ask a single question. That was the kind of man he was. I hired a security firm to install cameras at every entrance, and a private investigator confirmed what I already suspected. Grant had been quietly meeting with a law school friend, laying groundwork for a formal incompetency petition, dinner confrontation or not. That's exactly why, 11 nights later, when I heard that pounding at 11 p.m., I already knew who it was. I opened the door slowly, Bernard a half step behind me. Renee stood on the porch, and behind her, Grant, holding a tire iron loosely at his side, like he hadn't decided if he needed it or just wanted to feel powerful. "What is this?" Renee said, staring past me at Bernard. "Some kind of intervention?" "It's a witness," Bernard said evenly. "Someone who's going to remember every word said here tonight." "This is a family matter," Grant snapped. "Get out of the way." "You brought a tire iron to your father-in-law's porch at 11 at night," Bernard said. "That's not a family matter. That's a crime scene waiting to happen." The tire iron dropped an inch in his hand, like the words had weighed it down. "Is that what I am to you now?" I asked Renee. "Something you have to break a door down for?" Grant found his nerve faster than she did. "You think you're clever, Walter," he said, using my full name the way people do when they've decided you're no longer family. "Filing charges, hiding money, turning my own wife against her instincts about her father's decline." "It's over for you at the company," I said. "It's over the moment the district attorney finishes reviewing what Rosemary found. You're going to put me in prison over some invoices?" His voice cracked on prison. "You put yourself there, the day you decided lying to your wife's father was easier than working an honest job." Renee started crying, the same tears from when she was small and hadn't gotten her way, except now something colder sat underneath them. "Please, Dad." "He made a mistake." $210,000 isn't a mistake, Renee. It's a plan. And you knew about the conservatorship too. Don't tell me you didn't. I heard you with my own ears. She didn't deny it. That silence told me everything the tears couldn't. "Get off my porch," I said. "Both of you. And don't come back until you're ready to be honest. Actually honest." The security guard I'd stationed near the garage stepped into view from the shadows, and something about a witness in uniform drained the fight out of Grant fast. He grabbed Renee's arm and they left. The weeks that followed were the hardest since I buried my son and my wife. The DA's office accepted the embezzlement case within 10 days. The paper trail was too clean. An arrest warrant followed. Grant hired an expensive Cleveland attorney and, in a desperate move, filed a countersuit claiming I was mentally unfit, erratic, paranoid, manipulated by outside advisors. Almost funny, watching him try the same play twice. Nothing about it felt funny while I was living inside it. Priscilla had anticipated it. 3 independent neuropsychological evaluations, scheduled weeks earlier, came back within days. Full cognitive function, no impairment, sharper reasoning than most men his age. One doctor actually wrote. The countersuit collapsed before it found footing. Grant went to local news next. A tearful interview about an aging father-in-law manipulated into destroying his own family. It ran 2 days before a follow-up report, built on now public court filings, laid the embezzlement charges out plainly. Public sympathy flipped hard against him. My grandson Miles was the part that hurt worst. 7 years old, too young to understand any of it. Renee had told him I was sick and confused right now, and needed space. Bernard's wife ran into Renee at the grocery store, and heard Miles parrot the words back. "Grandpa's not okay in the head." That cut deeper than any tire iron. Then, 3 weeks after the porch, at nearly 1 in the morning, my phone rang. "You've destroyed my life," Grant said. His voice had none of its usual polish. Flat, hollow, frightening in its calm. "You destroyed it yourself. I just stopped covering for it. I'm not going to prison. I'd rather not exist than go to prison." I sat straight up in bed, every nerve suddenly awake. "Grant, listen to me. Whatever you're thinking about doing," he'd already hung up. I called Renee, no answer. I called the police, gave them everything. Bernard was dressed and moving before I finished explaining. We didn't sleep that night. At 6 a.m., Renee called, her voice barely holding together. "They found him. St. Vincent's. He took pills, Dad. A lot of them." I don't remember driving to that hospital. I remember a waiting room chair that smelled like antiseptic, staring at a vending machine, feeling the floor open beneath everything I thought I understood about how far anger could carry a person. He survived. Physically, at least. Something in him had cracked in a way I don't think fully closes. Renee came to my house 4 days later, alone, without makeup, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. "I knew," she said, sitting across from me at the same table where I'd laid out that folder. "About the money, not the exact amount, but I knew. I told myself it was fine because it was our money eventually anyway. And I knew about the conservatorship too. I told myself I was protecting you. I wasn't. I was protecting what I thought I'd inherit. Why tell me now? Because I watched him in that hospital bed with a tube down his throat, and none of it, the house, the company, any of it, mattered anymore. I almost lost him, and I almost lost you, because I let fear make my choices for months. I didn't forgive her that day. I want to be honest about that, because the stories that promise instant forgiveness after real betrayal are lying to the people who need to hear the truth instead. What I told her was that we could try to rebuild something slowly, if she was willing to be honest going forward, starting today. Grant eventually pled guilty to embezzlement in exchange for restitution and probation, rather than significant prison time. A deal Priscilla called more lenient than he deserved, but appropriate given his hospitalization and ongoing psychiatric treatment. He was permanently barred from any role at Higbee Restoration. Renee filed for separation 2 months later. I didn't push her toward it, but I can't say I was sorry to see it. I restructured the company completely. A real operating board, 5 people, none of them family, decades of restoration experience between them. Strict succession rules requiring real credentials, not blood. The trust stayed locked, untouchable by court order or family pressure, protecting 40 crew members and their families, whether or not my own bloodline ever proves trustworthy again. Miles started visiting on Saturdays again, once Renee and I found something like steady ground. He's 8 now. 2 weeks ago he asked, completely unprompted, whether he could come see the warehouse and learn to fix old houses like Grandpa does. I had to step into the hallway a minute before I could answer him. Nothing about the lawsuits or the hospital waiting room undid me the way that question did. Grant sent me a letter last month, 3 handwritten pages, no real apology in it, not exactly, but an honest attempt at explaining the shame that had built in him for years before it curdled into something ugly. I don't know if we'll ever speak again. I haven't decided if I want to. Some doors, once someone brings a tire iron to them, don't reopen the same way. I think about my father sometimes, standing in our kitchen in Toledo, telling me the only thing a man really owns is his word and his work. I understand that sentence completely now. Everything else, the money, the house, even the people you love most, can be pulled out from under you if you mistake comfort for safety. But dignity, the willingness to stand in your own doorway and refuse to be erased by the people who should have protected you hardest, that's something nobody can take, unless you hand it to them yourself. I'm 69 years old. I built something real with my own 2 hands, and I defended it, even when defending it meant standing across a dinner table from my own daughter and telling her the truth she didn't want to hear. It didn't end the way fairy tales end. It ended the way real life ends, imperfect, still healing, still uncertain some days. But I'm still standing in my own front hall, still holding my own keys, still the one who decides who gets let in. And that, at the end of everything, is enough.